Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Hagen-Botham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome back to the City Current Show, powered by Hagen-Botham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we always love talking about new books. That's why we're excited to have with us Meg Crosby and Howard Cleveland, co-founders of PeopleCap, strategic advisors, and co-authors of Running the Gauntlet, Proven Strategies for High Growth Leaders. We'll talk all about the book, but let's start out. Meg and Howard, how are you two doing?
Great. We are so happy to be here. Thanks for having us, Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. We're really excited to start talking about the book.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot to talk about when you talk about leadership, culture, growth, all of these amazing things that you discuss in the book. But let's start. Give us a little context. Give us some background. Let's start out with PeopleCap. Meg, give us some background on PeopleCap.
Sure, happy to. So Howard and I are lifelong friends who sort of ran into each other about 12 years ago, midway through our careers, and recognized that we had complementary skill sets. I had come up through investment banking and in the tech industry in the HR space, so always concerned about people and culture. Howard had been in a law firm. He's as we like to say, a recovering attorney. But he had been working with labor and employment and thinking about how organizations function and why some of the issues lead eventually to litigation, and working towards thinking about the upstream effects. How do you make sure those issues and those managers are well prepared to lead so that things don't go south? So we ran into each other and started a company to help elevate organizations and empower leaders. And our core belief is that people drive results, and we are always excited every day to help organizations grow and grow well and grow sustainably.
When you talk about working with companies and growth and culture and all these things that you do on a daily basis, what led you to write this book?
That's a great question. So as we were working with clients, we recognized that there were some patterns. We were seeing the same patterns that with each client. There were 6 areas that we felt like leaders needed to be advised in. There's sort of this, if you think about organizational health, or you think about your own health, if you have a New Year's resolution, for example, that you want to be healthy, you're going to do more than one thing. You might go to the gym, you might watch your sleep, you might drink more water, you might take vitamins. There are lots of different areas that you're going to make changes in. The same is true with building an organization. And so what we learned was that leaders needed to view 6 things, 6 areas. They needed to sharpen their focus. So that deals with vision and strategy. They needed to calibrate their culture of the organization, strengthen their leadership, elevate their talent, grow their talent base, do a better job of hiring and bringing in talent to the organization. They needed to optimize the structure of their organization, and they also needed to amplify their communication as the organization grows. And so we recognized those, and we began to chart those over 4 stages of growth in the life cycle of a business, and recognized that we had really a playbook for what it looks like for organizations to grow. And so as we got some traction with that, and our clients really loved this framework that we developed, they encouraged us to write the book, and that's what we did.
Well, when you talk about scaling, you have to have process, you have to have structure. And when you talk about taking all this expertise and knowledge and then being able to share it in this book, there's also a really powerful framework that you all call the Growth Gauntlet Framework, which obviously ties to the title of the book, Running the Gauntlet. So, Howard, go ahead and dive into this framework.
Well, as Meg said, we started with the 6 imperatives and those 6 things that are most important for growth. And as we charted those across the 4 stages, it really created a natural grid. And it's just a 6x4 grid. And when we're working with companies, we can look at where they are in those stages of development and how mature they are in each of those 6 imperatives. And so that framework really becomes a roadmap to let leaders see where they are, what strategies they need in that stage, and what's needed to prepare for the next stage. And so it's been a really helpful framework just to be able to put in front of investors and boards and CEOs to say, this is where you are, this is what's coming. So you don't have to be reactionary. You can be proactive. And this is what you need in the milestones you need to hit to get to the next stage.
Give us an example of how the stages are different. So when you talk about from a CEO's perspective and what's required, expected of them, the responsibilities, the culture, the team, give us an example of, at least two of the different stages, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, one of the easiest ones to explain is really about the role of the CEO. If you think about what a CEO does in the emerge stage, for example, which is really that startup stage, you have a founder CEO who leads with creativity and agility and flexibility and is an innovator and an entrepreneur who has one team around them of close people. And we sort of liken this to the one-man band. The CEO at that point is highly involved in the day-to-day operations of the company and probably in every single decision. When you get to the next stage, which is operationalize, the company has a proven product or service, and now we're trying to make sure that the company has the processes in place and the operations in place to make sure they deliver on that product or service, consistently every single time. And so the CEO role changes at that point. You need somebody who's going to lead with operations and somebody who's going to lead with that structure, that discipline to bring to the organization. That's a very different role than the founder creative person. Doesn't mean they can't be the same two people, but recognizing that there's a real shift in what the organization needs at that stage of growth is incredibly important to building the right team. Then as you grow, you move to the next stage, which would be the thrive stage. And the CEO becomes, at that point, the organization is more complex. You probably have 100 to 250 employees. So finding a CEO who knows how to develop and lead talent, that CEO is beginning to step out of the day-to-day operations of the business. So leading through other people, they may have a formalized board, they may have shareholders, how to communicate to those stakeholders. Incredibly important, very different job than the founder, very different job than the operationalized CEO. And then the final stage is what we call explore and expand. And that is a mature organization that has its processes developed, its markets defined, and is in a strong position to either look to enter new markets with what they've built or to go out and pursue acquisitions. And they know who they are. They're ready to make some big and exciting changes. That's a very highly strategic CEO. That is someone who really communication becomes incredibly important to all the different stakeholders, and someone who is, again, has an eye back on innovation, the first stage, because we know that organizations must innovate or die. So that kind of gives you an example of how things shift from stage to stage and why it's so important to know what stage you're in so that you can address your strategy and your talent accordingly.
This will tie to your name, PeopleCap, for your business. But I think when you talk about you can't outperform your people, culture is something that you really talk heavily about. And the importance of, as you go through those different stages, finding the right people and the culture that's created. And we see this a lot with, as companies grow, how do you maintain that family-oriented atmosphere, right? Like all these different challenges, but opportunities that evolve as a part of your team, your people, your culture. So talk about culture, the importance of culture in this framework.
Well, you touched on something that's really important where people have an idea of the culture they want and they think about it independently. When we think about culture in terms of growth, it's really, is our culture effective in helping us achieve our strategy? And so when you're looking at culture, as important as it is, it's always been somewhat amorphous. It's really hard to get your hands around. People think about either perks or behaviors or how it is. And when we think about culture, there are really 3 steps to building a culture that will support a strategy. And it's the first, it's define, demonstrate, and defend. And so define it, figure out exactly what you need and what you want, what behaviors, what values, what systems you need, and really make that clear for the organization so that you've discovered what you have, but really you're thinking about what stage you're in and what you need, and then demonstrate that. And the easiest way to demonstrate it and the most common is through leadership behaviors. And so make sure that you're in alignment and doing what you want others to do, but also demonstrate it in the processes, in the structures, in the systems. And so if you want a culture of teamwork and collaboration, make sure your performance metrics and your compensation metrics mirror that and actually reward working together and collaborating and not just individual effort. And then the most important and probably the hardest when you're growing really quickly is to defend it. And so you have this culture you've defined, you're trying to demonstrate and instill, but then you have behaviors that may be outside of it. And ultimately, your culture is the worst behavior you're willing to tolerate. So when you see behaviors that are outside of what you need to support the strategy, to hold people accountable and to pull them in. And when you're growing quickly and you need success, and especially revenue success, it can be really challenging, because if you have somebody who's really successful in bringing in revenue or generating income, but they're outside of the culture, it's hard to defend it in that situation. But it's critical for leaders to not only define and demonstrate, but to defend it, to build something that's sustainable.
Yeah, that's something I know you talk a lot about, is the financial focus versus the people focus versus investment. You offer a lot around investment strategy, capital. Give us maybe one tidbit around that side of it, the investment, the financial piece. Give us one, from the book, one takeaway there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I like to think of the financials as lagging indicators. By the time a problem shows up in the financials, it's almost too late. It means that that's some sort of activity, whether it's a lag in sales, you don't have the right sales leader, whether it's you have churn in your customer base, whatever it is, where people are not performing. That performance doesn't show up until it's already been in place for a long time. And so going back to correct it is challenging. So that's why it's really important to have the right people, processes in place, and performance management to make sure that conversations are taking place regularly, so that that course correction can happen in real time and not when it's too late. I think, as far as a story from the book, one of the things that stands out to me, we worked with a client early on who received investment from a private equity group and was really moving from that emerge stage to the operationalized stage. And the first order of business was to really create a professional management team. And so they needed to hire a VP of sales, a CFO, some of the typical executive positions. And so the investors spent quite a lot of money, or rather the CEO spent the money bringing in these investors, but the CEO was kind of a tyrant. And so ran through a lot of money in 1 year, turned over the executive team like twice, paid out a lot of the money in severance because these were highly paid employees, severance and search fees. And really it amounted to nothing. And eventually it was the CEO that needed to be replaced. So, these are big ticket items. Getting that right is really hard. And, investors will tell you that we have one, in fact, that has said on multiple occasions, we make these investments, we have financial degrees. That's the lens that we use. And then we invest in companies, and then we spend the next 3 to 5 years picking up the phone and trying to solve people problems. And so they are really critical and can be really expensive.
So who is this book geared towards?
The Growth Gauntlet is geared towards CEOs that are moving through those growth stages, but also their investors and boards. And so providing visibility to the CEOs in that roadmap to help them. And many of our clients are first-time CEOs, so they haven't been here before. And as they're going through it, it really can feel like they're getting hit from all directions and blindsided, thus running the gauntlet of these growth challenges. And so to be able to help them see what's coming, see where they are, make sure they know they're not alone, that these are common practices that other CEOs have been through, but also for the investors and the boards, so that they can see it, but have visibility. and be in a position to, a lot of times we've worked with a board and they said, when we presented the Growth Gauntlet, they were like, this is what I've been trying to show the CEO. This is what's coming. This is where it's coming. And since they haven't been there, a lot of times it's harder. So it's a tool for investors to use on their own, but also to communicate and relate to the CEOs of the companies they've invested in.
Alignment to me is so critical when you look at everybody being on the same page. So whether it's CEO, board, executive team, investors, like everyone, so that the alignment is there, which to me is really important. Meg?
At the end of each chapter, we provide questions for the CEO to ask their leadership team, and also questions for the board to ask the CEO. So to sort of help get clarity and make sure that those conversations are taking place. So it really is for both.
Were there any aha moments, anything that is you're going through the process of writing the book where you're like, oh, wow, this is something that is really impactful for our business. This is something that I haven't necessarily thought of it this way. So were there any aha moments or lessons going through the process of writing the book that you've now taken ownership for yourself and for PeopleCap?
Well, I think that the book journey, absolutely takes a village. And, if we were to talk about our whole book journey, we are so grateful to so many people, our clients, investors, the editor that helped us, the publisher, all of these people weighed in, and nobody writes a book by themselves. That just doesn't happen. In the same way, no one grows a company by themselves. So it is a team effort, and you are always relying on people with different skill sets to come to the table and do their best work. Nobody has all the skill sets or all the answers. And so for us, I think that aha moment was really, wow, it absolutely takes a village. And what a gift all these people with these different talents and skills coming to the table is for us to make this a success.
Yeah, and that's a great parallel to, just like you said, a company growing and teamwork. So I love it. Nice job. So the book again is Running the Gauntlet, Proven Strategies for High Growth Leaders, release April 29th, 2025. Talk about where we can get the book. How do we go through the process of following PeopleCap? So where do we go? How do we get the book?
So the book is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon. We will be having a book signing on April 30th at Novel Bookstore. They've been really gracious and really excited about the book. PeopleCap, you can always reach out through our website at peoplecap.com, or reach out to Meg and I at meg.crosby at peoplecap.com, or howard.cleveland at peoplecap.com.
We're on LinkedIn as well, so follow us there.
Well, Meg Crosby, Howard Cleveland, congratulations again. Once again, Running the Gauntlet, Proven Strategies for High Growth Leaders. Excited for getting the book myself. So congratulations. Thank you for all you do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.